Man, I was starting to worry. I'm like, where's David and Mike? Anxiety started to kick in.
Right on time.
Right? I said, especially since Mike's the one who knows what he's doing. So,
That's
Dr.
definitely
West.
debatable.
Dr. West should be here right now. I want to let him in before we open. And then, Mike, you'll just run point if that's fine, because I'm still traveling.
Okay. And what are we doing today?
I thought today you were seating them or nominations. I thought there was a follow up from last week.
Okay, we can take them through that process if they are prepared to go through it.
Okay. Hey, Doc. All right, what Doc's there is right 4 on the, oh, there we are. It's 4 on the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and open the room and start.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, Mike. It's so good to see you.
Likewise, good to see you too.
Good to see you. It's been a while. Hi, David. Hi, my brother Israel will be physically here soon.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say hi and thank everybody for all that you do. I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you guys too.
Of course. All right.
Yes, I
See
know,
you
yeah,
all
you're
later.
gonna do the thing. All right, Toby.
All right, folks, it's a minute after. I'm gonna open the room. Mike's gonna run point, and Dr. West's gonna be his guest host because he's the celebrity here. So we're gonna make it happen today. So
Dynamite, though,
let's
brother.
get our family in. Oh, oh, Mike, you're host. You have to admit him. I already switched over now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
You can just hit. Oh, admit.
I'm gonna make David a co-host as well.
Last time I just turned off the waiting room. Is it fine?
Okay, good. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, hello, everyone. So sorry you guys can't see me. I'll try to get on camera before the end here. I'm still traveling, but so happy to see you all. Beautiful, beautiful. So our brother Mike McCorkle has been gracious enough to sit in the driver's seat again this week and lead you all with his expertise. So I will be here on the call, listening and learning as well. But without further ado, sir.
Well, and I know that on any call with Dr. West, nobody wants to hear from me right then. So let me quickly hand things over to Dr. West. Let me give you just a bit of context, though. I think that our plan today is to welcome the folks who are participating here as members of the steering committee. We're going to start getting official and start making some decisions about how the national committee is going to look. So I think this is the core of the national party probably here. That's a lot of hype for all of you on the call. I hope you're prepared to live up to that, but it's kind of an important day and an important stage of the development here. So it's really great to have you with us here, Dr. West. It's nice to see you. Welcome.
It's always a blessing to see you, Sister Dana. Give a hug from me. You hold it down Denver, Colorado in a mighty way. I salute each and every one of the precious folk here on the screen. And I'm actually here just to be able to be a part of the continuation of what we've been trying to do for the last 18 months or so. And I want to salute Brother Israel because he's playing such an important role. You all know about Sister Kiana and Edwin and Alex and Stanley and so many others who were very much a part of this for the last 17, 18 months or so. But Brother Israel has really come in and played an important role in terms of the transition. And we're just trying to hold up some kind of light, some kind of truth, justice, love, and hope in such a dim and grim time. So there's a real sense in which it's a matter of us trying to sustain a kind of community in order to preserve our sanity and dignity, because we are up against it, and it's going to intensify. We know that, and we just need some kinds of capacities, institutional capacities, organizational capacities, personal capacities, existential capacities, spiritual capacities to try to sustain our movement and motion at this particular historical moment. And so I'm simply here just to try to be as much a part of it as I can, to take in and learn and listen and be empowered and enabled in the same way each and every one of you trying to be part of something to be enabled and empowered. And Brother Mike, I like to listen to you anytime you talk. I want you to know that, my brother. I'm telling you, you have held off some very intense foes and downright enemies in the last 18 months or so. And so many of us can testify to that indeed. Yeah, let's give Brother Mike a hand here, though. Let's give his brother a hand. And it's true. And of course, we salute our dear brother Israel. Is that Sister Tricia? I see Sister Tricia there in Washington, D.C., Chocolate City, at least it used to be. He worked head of the Justice for All right there in Washington. And I noticed there's some others too I won't go into, but I just saw Sister Tricia. Anytime I see her lovely face and smile, I like to acknowledge her very much so. But let me hand it back to you, Brother Mike, and just say I'm just going to be here just taking it in.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for touching on all those other aspects of what a political party is about, because my specialty, as you know, is the boring stuff, like the bylaws and, the do's and the don'ts and that kind of thing, forming committees, exciting stuff like that. But I think it's really valuable to keep an eye on all of those other parts of what we're doing, that we're aiming to provide community and direction and focus, the power of our community to get us through some dark days ahead. I want to encourage everybody that although we're about to start on this organizing mission, there will come a time soon when you're done building the party and you'll be able to start having the party. You'll be able to start using the party to do the things that you want to do in your community. So I appreciate that sort of orientation that will help us keep focused on the big picture while we get moving here. And yeah, I was happy to see Tricia and Ashton and Joe Burnham, Catherine in Pennsylvania.
Ashton Day.
Yes. Many good friends. So it's a good core, I think, for a national organization. I'm happy to see everybody on this. So I guess I'll just try to jump into it. I didn't expect that I was going to be driving things today, but I have done this kind of process before of trying to work with a group that is initially just a group that's trying to decide things by consensus, but we're trying to arrive at a committee that's going to vote on things. And we're trying to do that in such a way that we have a system that at the end of the day, we're going to have votes inside the party, and you're not going to win. You're not going to get your way every time, but we want you to stay with us, right? I was a Bernie delegate for 2 times in a row, so I know about losing those votes inside the party. But we want to have a system that everybody continues to feel a part of, even though it's going to turn into a more of a decision-making body. And one of the fundamental principles that we have with parliamentary procedure, and we'll be getting into that in the weeks ahead as well, is that everybody gets their say and the majority gets their way. So you all being the body, if you look at all the like Robert's rules and stuff like that, you all have self-governance, which is a fancy way of saying that I can't make you do anything. I have no way to just start giving you orders. And if you disagree, I can't climb through your screen like that spooky girl in the horror movie and come like get you, so this is self-governance. We have to be persuaded to do this all together. And so in forming a committee today, I think that the usual things that we do when we form a committee are, first of all, we're going to decide who's on the committee. and who's not. So if you're here and you're just a spectator, that's okay. Dr. West, we won't put you to work right away, but if you come to 2 meetings in a row, I can't guarantee anything anymore. We might get you to work on something. So who's going to be committed to going through the process with us? And then the first things that an assembly would ordinarily do are select its own chair, somebody to lead the proceedings. And I welcome you all to do that. I'll continue to be here and help to guide the process, but you all have the right to choose one of your own to be your own leader for these sessions. And if you want, as we move through the steering committee, it's informal. If you wanted to put somebody new in charge each time, I think that that would be okay. An equally important, maybe even more important role is the note taker. We need to have somebody who's going to take official notes on things. And if we start to have votes, somebody who's going to tally the votes and be able to tell us who voted each way and that sort of thing. So, and the big picture aim is to go through, form a committee and answer sort of the big questions about what our national committee is going to look like, how big it should be and how it should be built. Should it be state representatives, or should maybe the states be grouped together in regions and the regions are represented on the national committee? You know, you want to have something that's going to be inclusive of the Washington that's in DC with Tricia and the Washington out west with Ashton, with groups that are big and small and make everybody feel that they are represented and fairly represented. If we have a big group in one state, you know, it'll be up to you all to decide, should they have more votes than a state that has fewer members, or how do you want those things to work? So we are commencing on an act of self-governance here, and a little bit of an ad lib as well. So please bear with me as we find our way forward on this. Typically, I would ask if there are, you know, I would be acting as a sort of temporary chair, which means that I only get to keep running my mouth like this as long as it takes to run you through the process of nominating and choosing chairs. Are there any folks who are interested in being nominated or nominating one of the other attendees to be the chair of the proceedings?
If you can, please raise your little digital hand.
And David, if I might ask that you be our temporary secretary and note taker, would you
You mean to count all these?
kindly take note of any? And before, and as we're doing this as well, can you all tell me, is there like the volunteer Slack, is there a space where you all are able to be in touch with one another when we're not in a meeting like this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. That's important. That's a vital part of things.
We'll probably make something more robust or tailored directly to the steering committee, but there are ways that we all can be in contact as of now.
Okay, good. Yeah, it might be good to do like a free Slack or something like that in order to facilitate it. The hallmark of a real meeting, of a real board meeting for a nonprofit or a committee meeting for a party, is that everybody needs to be able to hear everybody else at all times. So if Ashton, who's had his hand up and is waiting patiently, ran out of patience and just got tired of listening to me, he should have a right to speak over me, and we can decide who has the right to speak. I'm just kidding, Ashton. I know you're too polite to do such a thing. But it's important that you all have the ability to confer with one another and debate these things among one another, ideally, because as we go forward, it would be great if we could say in advance, next week, here's the decision we want to come in and make. So you all spend this week, this coming week, conferring with one another and debating it with one another. So so that it's not sort of unprepared like the races might be this time. Thank you, Erica. And thank you, Ashton. Is Ashton our only volunteer? I don't want to say willing victim. We're going to treat you better than that, Ashton. But is Ashton? Looks like Ashton is nominated potentially to be the chair. That would be good. He's the one who asked for the parliamentarian, so he can keep things running with me. But two chairs. I see Dia's question about having two chairs. It is possible, certainly at this stage, especially to have a sort of a rotating system or something like that. In terms of who's running the meeting, though, it comes down to one person, just one person. So we can have and certainly seek those sorts of balance in these offices. In the steering committee, bear in mind that these offices only last as long as the steering committee does. And we can also rotate these offices in the steering committee if maybe somebody else wants to give it a go after a week or so. Good. I see a lot of discussion about preferences for the offices. That's good, because those are the kinds of rules that we're going to be asking you all to come up with for the permanent national committee. And it's with respect to those national officers, the permanent officers, that I think that those things will be much more important than
Mike?
these. But yes,
I have my hand raised simply because I would nominate you, Mike McCorkle, to chair this meeting because there's a lot of technicalities and you seem to be doing a good job, but that's just my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate the vote of confidence. What I was going to do is it is important to me personally, maybe I'm just a stickler about this kind of thing, that you all have your own authority. And what I would do is if you all select a chair for these proceedings, is then I will ask that chair's permission to continue to provide this guidance. But then when it comes time to holding the votes and things like that and running the debate, if there is any, then I would defer to the chair that you all have selected. Does that seem suitable? But I appreciate your kind regard for my role here, and I recognize it is a bit of an odd thing where if I'll tell you what, if we have the chance also to select a chair this time, in the coming week, I'll spend some time with the chair to go through the outline of this process in some greater detail so that it will not be so reliant upon myself. Ashton, if would you like to say anything? I see Timothy and Israel both have hands up as well, but yours has been up longer. Is yours just for the purpose of nomination, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to participate in nominating. It did seem there are a few people who had someone in particular they wanted. I do like Paris's recommendation of a rotating chair, so we can do that for sure. Or and then yes, I agree with the idea of letting you run this meeting basically as well. So
fair enough. Well, and in the spirit of self-government, if you all would prefer to have more of the process I just described, where perhaps we're just presenting this week that here are the things that are going to be decided next week, and we could hold off and do a selection of the steering committee officers for next week and give you all a chance to, you could run a major campaign on the Slack channels or something like that if you'd like to do it that way. It is up to you all. Let me ask Timothy, what have you got? Have you got a perspective on that as well, or on something else?
I like the idea of rotating chairs, and I wanted to nominate Dia Pita. And if we're rotating chairs, then I'd also like to nominate Paris.
Okay. Yeah, the idea of rotating chairs can be good. I have worked with groups that what they did is they had co-chairs and it was rotating co-chairs. So one person, this was a process that was already going on, but you would have somebody who had just been the chair for the previous meeting. They continue to the next meeting and pick up a new partner. And then they step back and their new partner now has the experience to go to the second meeting. You see what I mean? I feel like I'm poorly explaining it, but it's sort of offset 2 meeting terms for each chair. But every meeting, you've got somebody who's on their first time and somebody who's on their second time. So we could share it around that way if you'd like. And I'm open to thoughts on, I don't think we're going to have a real adversarial process here where the parliamentary procedure is going to be super important. We talked about wanting to sort of instill that culture because that is how these processes work. But I think we could probably get away with co-chairs if you all have an idea of how you'd like to divide up their authority. Maybe have one run the beginning of the meeting and the other run the second, or something like that. Anybody have thoughts on that? And I know that you had your hand up as well.
Yes, I wanted to interject, seeing all the confusion, and sort of give a little bit of an explanation. It's mostly my fault. I had a running schedule in my mind about how these meetings would go and what we will be doing per meeting. So apparently I put the cart before the horse this time. So I definitely want to leave room here if we just want, like Mike said, if we just want to discuss today, have an understanding of what the expectation is, and then when we return next week, we can actually do the elections. And then I'm not eligible to second, but if I was eligible to second, I would definitely second Timothy's nomination of Paris and Dia.
Parliamentary procedure, learning time. Nominations typically do not require a second.
See,
They do it.
that's
They
why
do it in
Mike wrote
political parties, though, because it means more people get to give speeches. Because if you're seconding it, then you get to give a speech about how awesome the nominee is, and then they'll usually second it as well. So you get like 2 or 3 people who say really great stuff, and then the person comes up, and that's why like the Democratic National Convention goes on for days and days and days, because every little step has got to have everybody get their chance to talk. So, and in any case, it'll be up to your chairs to decide what they allow in terms of that. So maybe we'll let you second a nomination. I don't know. So thank you yeah, it'll be I'm just trying to keep up on the notes as well. Thank you, Yasha. Okay, so yeah, it sounds like maybe, and you all let me know if there's anybody who's like, nah, I came here to choose officers today, and come hell or high water, that's what I'm doing. And is there anybody who's opposed to putting it off for another week so that you all could discuss what you want the chair role to look like? And don't forget the secretary role. We're going to need a really good note taker. And if you all want to have that kind of rotated and shared, that might be a good way to share the chores of that as well. Yes, Barbara, Robert's rules. I've got Robert's rules right here. In Robert's rules, even in the like condensed part of it, it gets into like a 40-page discussion of who has the right to speak if 2 people stand up at the same time. It can get really complicated, and it's good to have a fallback in case things get really testy and there's really a dispute. But in any dispute, and part of what Robert's rule says is that the body exercises self-government. So even if we had a rule that McCorkle's only allowed to talk for 5 minutes at a time, it'd be a tough rule to enforce. But even if you had that rule, you all could come in one day and be like, no, he's extra funny today, we're going to let him go for 10. And we could change the rules like that, because that's what self-government looks like. That's how it works for you. So Steve, you have a point again, and let me give you another parliamentary procedure point here, Steve. Ordinarily, one of the things that a chair does, we talked about last week as well, the 2 big parts of parliamentary procedure, the 2 main functions. We talk about one thing at a time, and we make sure that everybody has a chance to say anything. So you're exercising your privilege of speaking for a second time, Steve, and we're going to allow that because I'm a big softy. I'm not going to enforce that today, but pay attention to that as we go forward, because we may need to enforce rules where when we have a matter up for debate, you only get one shot to say your piece. But no pressure. But go ahead, take your second stab, Steve. You get a privilege because you're a fellow Colorado.
We have postal workers Zoom meeting once a week, and I take the notes. And oftentimes people are making so many good points that I just can't write fast enough. So I record it on my cell phone and then listen back after the meeting is over and can improve the notes or even rewrite them. That's anybody that's going to be the note taker could keep that in mind as a way of making it easier for yourself.
That is a good thought, and we're generally recording all of these as well. So whoever your note taker or note taker committee may be that you all settle on going forward, maybe we can arrange to ensure that they've got access to the recording if need be. I see a little heart from Iz, so I think that is okay. So yeah, we'll have the advantage of having a recording that you all can use to make some notes that way we can be sure they'll be thorough and can also be made concise. So good thought. Thank you, Steve. Way to live up to the hype. Todd, your hand is up.
Hello, thanks. How about listing what positions are to be voted on and deciding as specific as we can the duties of each position? That's one suggestion I have. Also, I would submit that the chair should be nothing more than a facilitator or administrator, rather than any kind of authority position. But that's something that should be, I think, hammered out up front. And also, third point I want to make is I think Robert's rules is a bad way to run things. There are other processes, or we could formulate one ourselves. I don't know how many people are going to be on this steering committee, and frankly, I'm not sure. I don't see the overall organizational pattern yet. But Robert's rules can be terrible. I mean, and they're being used less and less. You can use a group conscience process, especially if you don't have a whole lot of people involved.
Yes.
So that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
I'll let you talk quicker and every time, because I think this happened last time as well. You're an excellent segue guy, because yeah, for one thing, the offices we're talking about right now, it does bear clarifying that we're speaking about officers to help us through the steering committee process. And the two big officers, just like we would have at our national convention, are the chair, the person who's running the meeting, and the secretary or record keeper, the person who's going to be taking notes. So the chair conducts a vote, leads everybody through the vote, and the secretary would mark down, here's what's being voted on, and here's what the vote was. Here's the vote count, and here's what the decision was. And you're correct. Well, for one thing, I think you're correct about Robert's rules. I'm not a big fan either. It goes on to a lot of stuff that I don't think we're going to need. And I think that to your point on that, you all have got the right to choose your own procedural rules. Robert's rules is kind of a fallback that a lot of people use, but there are some simplified parliamentary procedural rules. I think the University of Iowa Political Science Department had a simplified system. There's some stuff like that out there, and you all are welcome to find your own process for that and make that the rule of things. And you're correct also that in Robert's rules or most rules of parliamentary procedure, the chair does have a facilitating role. It's kind of like the role of the vice president in the United States Senate, that they typically don't even participate in the votes. They just help people hold the votes, and the chair typically isn't supposed to engage in the debate, that kind of thing. You're supposed to be neutral and stand aside from those things unless there's a tie, and then often chairs would vote in those circumstances. But I would tell you that if we're forming a political organization and we've got a question and we've got a tie, that often it's best, and this may also go to your thoughts about Robert's rules. The solution sometimes isn't to break the tie. The solution sometimes is to recognize that you've got a divisive question that you should step back from and talk about more, rather than risk coming to a vote that, sure, you settled it and one side won by one vote, but if it's something that people are really divided on, you risk dividing your organization. So all of those kinds of
Exactly. Thank you.
considerations are important. Sure, man. I love your suggestions. I've been so glad you've spoken up on these things. And in terms of a general plan of action, like what I would have you all work through, you might imagine that we're just filling in the blanks like one of those Mad Lib games on the future national charter for the party. Because I was going to draft up something that has all the boring stuff and everything that just has to be in there. But there are some things that I can't make the decision on. The first one that we put out there is, what is the national committee going to look like? How big is it going to be? Is it going to have regional representatives or state representatives? And how are you going to apportion that? How do you all agree that it's going to be fair? Should it be one representative per state, or group states together in regions and put the regions on the national committee? That kind of decision is the first big question. The second big question, and I think you all are going to be ready for it because I'm already seeing a lot of discussion about it in the chat, is what are the officers of the organization? How do you want that to look? I can tell you that you need a chair. You can have more than one chair. We can make that work if that's what you all want to do. You have to have somebody who's a designated record keeper, secretary, records custodian, or whatever you want to call them, but somebody who keeps the records. And then when it comes time for the financial stuff, and this is still a ways off, but you'll need to have a treasurer, obviously, because we hope to someday have some treasure. So we'll need somebody to keep an eye on that. So those are the general offices, but do you want a vice chair? Do you maybe want two vice chairs? Because you could use a vice chair. One could be in charge of something like diversity, or you could assign the vice chairs different roles. So that second big question will be, what do you want the officers of the organization to look like? Once we've got that down, then we'll just make some decisions about what kind of voting rules do you want to have in the party? Do you want to allow proxy voting? I like to kid my fellow Bernie Sanders people and be like, we want super delegates in the party, right? Otherwise, it won't make any sense, and we won't have any way for the establishment to rip off the rank and file. But that decision about how you want voting to work in the party comes next. And then it's pretty much just the nuts and bolts of, when are we going to actually select and seat that first national committee? And then going through that process, like, are we going to have the people in each state or region elected delegate or whatever? So that's kind of the path that we're on. Once we've got to that point, then I think we'll be able to go through the process, select and seat the national committee, and then we'll kind of start over, because then we get to choose officers out of that national committee again. But we'll have arrived at a point that I described earlier, where we will have evolved from a loosely defined group doing things by consensus. We will have evolved by that point to a national committee that will be doing things by voting, and it will be official and like registered with the Federal Election Committee and all that stuff. It's real. So yeah, one step at a time. I'm sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I've been trying to keep up with the chat as well. I do see a question about Robert's rules. I can tell you that there are a couple of jurisdictions in the country that, in forming a state party, the state law does say something about Robert's rules are your basic rules, unless you've provided for something otherwise in your bylaws. But most states don't say anything about it, so we can put whatever you want. And even in those states that do reference Robert's rules in their state law, you can write your own rules and get around it. Todd, is your hand up again? or is it, has
Oh,
it
no,
remained?
sorry. I'll put it
Uh,
down.
Oh, no worries. I'm not sure how to
You're
do
doing an
that.
awesome job, by the way. Okay, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Superb.
I appreciate
Superb.
it.
Superb. But you always do a superb job. That's who you are, brother.
Well, I appreciate it. It's I for the campaign too, I got thrown into the hot seat now and again to do some things I had not had to do before. I guess as you did as well. We had you on the witness stand there for Pennsylvania. So, does anybody have other questions or comment? Anybody maybe disagree and think I'm doing an awful job? Uh, um, any thoughts on it? It feels like there's sort of a consensus developing to prepare over this next week to come in at the next meeting and select the officers for the steering committee. Does that seem about right? And Ashton and Dia, actually, Ashton, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to call on Ms. Dia because you've already had an opportunity to speak. So, hello.
Hello, and thank you,
Hello.
Ashton, for conceding to letting me speak first, but you're probably going to say what I'm going to say because Ashton's my buddy on Slack. He keeps me out of the bunker. I was going to ask if maybe we could vote on seating the steering committee today so that we can create maybe a meeting, if it's not just virtually, to consider officers through that steering committee, understanding that there's a number of people on here who don't want to be active steering committee members, but they may I don't have an opposition to people just coming to this meeting, but the people who really want to serve as a steering committee person, a committee person, we could go ahead and get that decided. Then it would be easier to understand who we might want to nominate for office. That was my suggestion.
Thank you. That sounds like a pretty good suggestion. Do you all want to consider that? I also see Via's hand is up and Ashton, yours as well. That seems like a very sound proposal. So I'll tell you what, let me go to the couple of hands that are raised. And if we don't have another proposal like that raised, then we'll turn that into a parliamentary description. And Janie, to your point, we'll get a little more detail about what we're talking about to be on the steering committee. Exactly. But that sounds like a very good idea. Thank you for that suggestion. Ashton, if I may ask you to hold off a moment longer, and Ms. Brinkley, some of the names, Dia as well, like I knew your names during the campaign, but I never had a chance to really visit with you all. It's terrific to see you all. Ms. Via?
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I really like the suggestion to first figure out what the positions are. I also liked the suggestion to provide a description of each position so we have an expectation already set about what the responsibilities are for said stated position. I would also like the suggestion of formulating names to be nominated so everyone who is a part of the steering committee can see who is being, nominated and can make a decision that way. Especially if we have a little bit of time. I understand the sense of urgency, but I'm also in a state that, again, doesn't have, we were under a different party. What is to come of that? How are we to move in that position when you are, working with another party? That hasn't been rectified yet. So I feel like there's a lot of questions that are still unresolved. And I would like to have some understanding about what the positions are, what a description of the position, who are all of the people being nominated for stated position. And if we can do that through Slack, I'd love to help with that. But I think that would be an appropriate first step before any votes for anything kind of happen. And that's just me. I'm done.
I like that. I think you're right. I think you're articulating my own slight unease at the idea that we were supposed to come in today and have you all vote without what I felt was a real fair opportunity for you all to discuss what are we voting for and discuss the nominees and so forth. And so taking the time to get this stuff right, I think we do have the time to do that. Like the political calendar is moving on, but it's still pretty early in the process. We have way fewer millionaires to spend time making happy, so we'll be able to catch up later, I think. But that sounds like a good process. I'm going to hold and not propose a vote or anything like that on it just yet until I hear from the last two hands we've got up. But it sounds like there's a will in the group to make a determination today and enroll people who know today that they want to be on that steering committee. And then in this coming week, let's get on the Slack with a description of the offices. Again, I can tell you very basically, the offices are you need somebody to run the meeting every time, and you need somebody to take notes on the meeting every time. But you all can decide what that looks like. Is it going to be a rotating thing, a co-chair thing? Are you going to have a committee of people collaborate on the note taking? But you all can decide that in the Slack and describe that in the Slack so that people know what they would be running for. And Ashton, thank you for your patience, as always, my friend. What have you got?
No problem. I guess I was still a bit hung up on the Robert's Rules thing. Like, is it? I know you're saying that, you know, some people said they hated it and all this. It's like, is it salvageable? Is there like, can we just adopt it and then just if we ever run into some kind of hurdle, we just say, well, we can, like somebody said in the chat, the common sense factor would trump the Robert's Rules. Is that baked into it in some procedural way, or is it just kind of we need to start from ground zero?
Actually, yeah, like with my nonprofit board of directors, Robert's Rules is prescribed as the fallback procedural rule if we ever get to a point that we have to call a meeting to order and get to that. But as long as we're just talking and reaching consensus, we don't have to get into all the formalities of it. I think that leads to a lot of the negativity people feel towards it. It's something I don't like about it is it gets into such technicalities. It's really well suited for a very large assembly that's also very contentious, very adversarial. So there's debate and the two sides can't agree on anything. You read through Robert's Rules and I mean, I find myself thinking like, why don't y'all just split up and go home? This is not working out if you've got this much to fight over. But yeah, under Robert's Rules, I typically run our meetings for the nonprofit under a suspension of the rules, which is, in fact, it's written into our bylaws that the Robert's Rules are suspended unless anybody feels like I'm not getting my chance to say my piece, this isn't fair or whatever, and anybody who's participating can demand, you know, a call to order. And at that point, okay, now we're going to get more formal about the rules and make sure that we're abiding by everything if there's that sort of call to order. But otherwise, yeah, we can usually operate in a more relaxed and laid back kind of way.
Thank you.
But yeah, having some kind of rules that you go to ultimately, and it doesn't have to be very involved, that can help when you have a dispute over, well, this was my proposal. You don't get to stand up and try to change my proposal and make everybody vote on your change. If it's my, you know, it can get kind of dicey that way. And so it's good to have rules ahead of time just to try to alleviate the potential for misunderstanding and conflict. Israel. I see your hand up, Israel. and I'll give you privilege since you're the boss here, sort of.
That's a joke. Pickett, I'll go ahead and defer to you. I've already Via covered a lot of my points. So
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. When people are making another person's points, then we are beginning to be of a like mind. Ms. Hunter Pickett, pleasure to speak with you. I don't know that we've spoken before. I see your hand up.
Thank you for
Hello. Did you have a question?
yes, I do. First of all, I want to give all respect to Cornel West for everything that you've ever done to create justice here and abroad.
Thank you, my dear sister. Thank you. Thank you. That's true for all of us. We in it together. We are in it together. Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to make up my mind. I want to be part of this party.
I'm sorry, we're having difficulty hearing you, I'm afraid. Is it possible to move closer to the microphone or?
I'm here. Can you hear me better?
There you are. That was better.
I'm here to try to make up my mind if I want to be a part of this party. I'm trying to learn what this party really truly is about. And my question was, my concern, exactly what you meant when you said it's a million needs that we have to satisfy. What did you mean by that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part? The
When
key
you
part.
when you spoke, Mr. You said something about we have to satisfy some millionaires.
Have to codify.
You have to satisfy some
no,
millionaires.
ma'am, if I may, Mike made a joke.
I'm talking to him. I'm talking to him. He's the one who said it.
I understand, madam.
Mr. McCorkle, what do you mean by that? I really am not understanding it. What do you mean by that?
Israel, can you help me understand the question?
If you
I'm
will.
just here.
You made a joke earlier saying that it won't take us as much time because we have, she left, so it's fine. But we don't have to codify as many millionaires was the statement that you made.
Yes. We're on the political calendar that everybody is in right now. All the parties are choosing leaders right now, except for the Libertarians. Breaking news this morning, they're throwing the chair of that national party out this morning. She's under investigation for embezzlement. But all the other parties are at the point right now where they're getting ready to elect a new chair for the DNC and that sort of thing. And they'll have that done in the next couple of weeks. We don't have to have a chair for our national committee in the next couple of weeks. We don't have to be on the same exact timeline. So usually, in fact, last week I came in here, right, talking about there's a political calendar. A political party has to operate in that political calendar. But it's not as strict right now in this odd numbered year where it's usually the party building process. It's not going to make us fall behind terminally if we take a few extra weeks or a couple of months, even whatever it takes you all to come to the right decisions and come to a good consensus about how our national committee is going to look. So, yeah, sometimes my jokes are so bad they drive people off. Sorry. Oh, well, maybe she'll come back. Henry. Hello, Henry. What have you got for me?
Yeah. Hi, this is Henry over in New York with Joseph and the New York crew.
Brother Tone,
and Brother Tone,
Bianca,
Patricia.
Oh,
we have a question.
Hello, Dr. West.
We salute you. We salute you. We salute you. New York is in the house. I know Brother Jai and Sister Erica in LA. We got both coasts and in between in the house. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Blessing.
It's good to see you and good to be here. we had a question not specifically about the proceedings, but we know that there's a happy hour tomorrow. We would love to be able to attend and discuss and see what organizations we can bring to the party. But we're wondering if there was like a cheaper tickets available or something like that. No, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow.
Oh,
Yeah.
Israel? Yeah, that's a much more fun subject than listening to me talk about parliamentary procedure, right? I mean, happy hour, come on. Like, I can't compete with that. What you got,
Sorry.
Israel?
Trying to get off mute. The Floridian is working with gloves right now, so I'm not used to it waiting on a car. In any case, you guys, I'll offline with Mr. Selman about that. Thank you.
I hope you all are able to be there. It looks like you've got a pretty good start on a happy hour already. You just need to find out where they're at and go join that party.
Absolutely.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. And for our friends in New York, I'm keeping an eye on, there is a bill going through the state legislature right now that would aim to make it easier to qualify independent candidates and minor parties in the state. So now is the time really for everybody. It's the ideal time in a legislative session and this far from the next presidential election. And now is the time to talk to your state legislators about making ballot access easily accessible if it is not already. There are plenty of states where it's pretty easy. And the states that make it hard, my question for them would be, why does it have to be harder than it is in Vermont? You know, why does it have to be harder than it is even Mississippi? Really easy to start a party there. So how do you justify all the stuff you have to go through? So now's the time to do that. Ms. Hunter Pickett, we had audio issues with you, but I invite you to put a question in the chat for us, if you will, and we'll try to get a response to that as we move forward. The New York State bill, I did just send something to Israel about that. I can look for it again, what that bill number is.
I can probably pull it up while you check.
Okay. Yeah, I thought I had the bill number in the thing that I sent you about it. Okay, but to return to the suggestions that we had, a couple of folks earlier, it seemed like there was a consensus developing that we could select people today for the steering committee. I think that anybody who wanted to volunteer to be counted as part of the steering committee, we could get that established today. And then you all can get into your Slack space. And one thing that you might do also is invite people there to join in the steering committee. When I've done this kind of thing previously, there were some people, because of their work schedules or family commitments, they were unable to make it to the particular meetings that we were having. And so we had a channel on Slack where we posted the business of the meetings. And if a person was absent from the meeting, but if they came in and responded in some thoughtful way to the notes on the meeting, we would count them as present for purposes of being part of the committee, and we would try to count their votes. So just a suggestion to you all, if you wanted to try to reach out to folks who can't be here with us on these Saturdays. But I think, again, to restate, and if I were a better chair, I would make a point. This is part of the big job of a chair, is to carefully state the question being placed before the group. And I'm going to break this into two. One is, there's a proposal that we have all of you who are willing to be on the steering committee today to go ahead and sign up and get that committee officially established. Other people may join it later, but get that established today. And the second proposal, we'll handle this second, is to put a description of these offices, the assembly chair, the assembly secretary, get that into the Slack so that you all can decide what you want the offices to look like and be prepared to come in next week with nominations and selection of the offices of the steering committee. Did I get it right? Does that seem about right? Yeah, okay. And the role of the steering committee, You're right. That was a question from earlier. Thank you, Janie, for posting that again. The job of the steering committee is to make the decisions about what the governing body of the party is going to look like eventually. Because Iz and I have read a lot of cool books and stuff like that. We have a lot of cool ideas and everything, but we have no authority to just make up stuff by ourselves. And frankly, the ideas of two of us are not as good as the ideas of all of us. So the role of the steering committee is to come back for the period of time that it takes to do the work, to come back and have discussions about those questions I mentioned before. What does the national committee look like? What are the officers going to be? How is voting going to work in the party? And make decisions on those things. And then I will attempt to draw up a charter and bylaws document for the national committee. And it would be the role of the steering committee to tell me whether I got it right or not, to either approve that draft or not. And the way that I've done this kind of a launch before is the steering committee gives a thumbs up when they feel like the charter and the bylaws are where they want to be. And then at that point, the steering committee can disband, because we go through the process then of selecting the national committee, and that national committee becomes the governing body of the party. And so the steering committee has just sort of a temporary role, but it's kind of like the Constitutional Convention. That's kind of how I think about it, right? Like those guys didn't stay in Philadelphia, but they went to Philadelphia and decided what needed to be in the Constitution. And that was what their roles were. So in a way, it's kind of like being delegates to a constitutional convention. Sure, I hoped that that was helpful. Yeah, and I do see the notes about ballot access for the parties and so forth. And this also goes to the issue that was touched on earlier about what if you're in a state like mine in Colorado, where we were nominated by a minor party. They nominated Dr. West, and now we're looking at forming our own organization. I think that what I've recommended for my friends here in Colorado is go ahead and form up your own state committee of the Justice for All folks, and then decide as a group the approach that you want to have with the state. And you can decide that with us. I mean, depending on what sort of relations you have, like many of my friends here in Colorado, for example, they don't need me to go talk to the Unity Party for them necessarily, because they all participate in the Unity Party and they know those folks. But if you're in a position where you would prefer that Israel or me, or maybe your steering committee chair or somebody else facilitate the conversation with that minor party, then the time for that is coming. But I think that you are better off organizing your people in the state. You know, like our people here in Colorado, we'd be in a much stronger position if I go to the Unity Party here and say, I've got a committee of 5 people representing 20 or more, supporters. And so let's talk about our future together, versus they get emails from 20 different people, each individually saying, what's going on? Are we going to join you or not? So I think it's better if we get organized at a state level and then have the conversations with those parties. There are half a dozen or so states where we'll need to have those kinds of conversations and see what things look like there. By the way, you might need to get involved in the Natural Law Party down there in Florida, and we'll be helping them get their name changed so they can join us as well. But that might be your path to the national table, is through the Natural Law Party. How this connects to the ballot access question is this. Here in Colorado, if me and Joe Burnham and Steve Brown, and I'm trying to think of everybody from Colorado who I recognized on the participant list, forgive me if I missed you, but if me and all my Colorado friends get together and we form a committee here, we can be the Justice for All state committee. And if it's acceptable to you all, the steering committee and so forth, then we could choose somebody like Joe or Steve to be our delegate to the national committee. Our little group is going to be nothing under Colorado law. We're not going to be a political party. We're not going to yet even be a political organization. But that aspect of building the party, the ballot access part of it, it's going to be a different puzzle to solve in every single state. And it doesn't make sense to hold hostage that state's ability to participate in the national party on the basis of these ballot access laws, because we could tell you the ballot access laws are crazy. They do not make sense. We had some just bizarre rulings in a few of the states. So the way that I've described it to folks before is that political parties, you can think of them having three aspects. One is a campaign finance aspect. From like the FEC's perspective, a political party is just a bank. A bank account that operates under certain rules and reports its activity to the campaign finance authorities. The second aspect of a political party is
David,
a political organization.
Sorry. There's a David Keurig who's off mute. David, if you could mute him, please, or if you can mute yourself, David.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, just briefly, there's the campaign finance aspect of a party, there's the ballot access aspect of a party, and there's the political aspect of a party. The ballot access part is going to be a different puzzle to solve. You know, you might be a political designation in some states. In Indiana, you can be a political party as soon as you have a committee, but you become a bona fide political party under state law once you put somebody on the ballot. It's going to be a different thing in every state. But from the political perspective, if you've got a committee of people who are committed to working together for justice for all, then the party can consider them our state party, even if they're not a party under state law. And even if the FEC doesn't know about them as a state party, we can still consider them a party and allow them to participate in our national table. So that'll be part of finessing things with those minor parties, as well as if you're in a state where you're like the only person in your state who's a part of this, don't worry that you're going to be left out until the day comes that we get a state party set up. That would put an impossible prerequisite out there, I think, for everyone. Timothy, I see your note as well. So you're in Florida as well? Very good. And was there a question? I didn't see a hand. Okay, so then I'm going to try to reel it back in and go back to the questions. I'm going to try to be a good chair of this convention. I'm fumbling the job just enough to make you rethink nominating me for this, though, right?
No way, no way, no way, no way, brother.
Yeah, no way, no way.
Okay, Israel, you are a co-host as well now. Okay, so the question, then the first question, it goes back to Dia's proposal, which would be that we go ahead and select our steering committee members today, or at least the initial list of them. Dia, have I correctly understood the proposal? It's your proposal, Dia, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. Are you comfortable with people signing up on the Slack if they weren't here, or should it just be people who are here and participating? What do you all think?
No, I agree 100% with everything that you've proposed and that motion. Just wanting to, I think we need to understand, again, who's wanting to move forward doing this, and then who is just trying to hang out and support. It's also would be good if we knew what states we already have covered in the steering committee, because I know one of the goals was to have at least 14 states. And I'm not trying to rush anything. I'm a former project manager, so it's hard for me to not stay on task. You know what I mean? And so you've already tasked us with, we need 14 states to try to run, these officers. And I'm just looking at all of that. And so if we knew who was being seated today, how many states that covered, again, that would tell us where we are progressing. So yeah, I'm fully aware we can seat additional steering committee members later, but it would be nice to see where we are right now.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and no rush at all. I'm so grateful that you're keeping us on task like that. Project manager, now I'm not surprised by that. That's going to be very, very useful for us. So so then if I may restate the question, well, let me go to he's got his hand up and he's the boss kind of, so I'm gonna
No,
go.
no, I just wanted to assuage D's concerns. What I'll do is I'll send an email to the attendees of this meeting, maybe even to the invitees, and see who wants to designate themselves as a member of the steering committee. And then I'll get that out to you guys this week by SCI for another email. Just look out for that.
We could also, I mean, I tapped David at the beginning of the call to make him my note taker, and I haven't really put him to work yet. So if we want to make him earn his keep here, I'm just kidding with you, David. But
sorry, David, I tried.
It,
Close.
is it easy in some way? Like maybe if we said everybody who wants to be on, raise your hand. I know we've got Henry would have to be able to raise 5 or 6 hands there. What do you all think is the easiest way to have everybody enroll? Recognizing that you've got this Slack space as well.
I think I'd probably recommend that if you would like to be interested, write that in the chat. For someone like Henry who's meeting with a group, just if you can give us a tally of numbers, that'll be great. So the meeting's recorded, everything's recorded, so we'll have all of this to go back and tally. Should be good.
Oh, okay. There you go. Of course, the recording. I
I
always
can't.
forget about the recording.
I'm on I don't know how to get into the chat, so I'm sorry, but if somebody could add my name. So, because I don't know how.
Yeah.
I had your name added before we started 6 weeks ago.
Okay, and we got you in there. And yeah, I've heard of you as well, Via. We're not going to let you get away. Don't worry. Joseph, Mr. Selman. You're raising your hand just for the steering committee?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, getting back to the question of what's the easiest way, I would think maybe having a survey on a Google Doc or something like that. You know, and I think within that Google Doc, you can also send, make any kind of comments and stuff like that, due date stuff, etc.
Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Oh
There
yeah,
you go.
another thing. Yeah, we didn't hear. Okay, that's it then. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And I heard the note from the others in the room there as well that yeah, an opportunity to introduce yourself to the other members of the steering committee. To Dia's point, let us know what state you're in. Oh, I did want to correct. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, wait. How do you raise it again? I'm still okay.
You want to raise your hand again?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you want an introduction, you said? Michael?
I think we'll
Yeah.
table for now so we can, because we're 20 minutes to the end of this meeting and I have a hard out for dinner in this evening. So I do want us to get through the business and then we can do plan for introductions next meeting or another meeting. If that's okay with everyone.
Sounds good.
Yeah, or if there is a space in the Slack or elsewhere to be able to facilitate this, those sound like good ideas because you all are going to be co-workers on the steering committee and the initial core of this thing. And I hope that someday it'll be something that you all are all extremely proud of, that you were one of the founding members, that you were here at the beginning of the beginning. So the proposal then is, and we didn't really hold a vote on it, but I haven't heard any profanity or opposition to going ahead and getting people on the steering committee today. And then when you all go back to the Slack, this is the second part of the proposal. Do you wish to make your nominations there? And it's not just nominations, but decide, would you like to have a rotating co-chair kind of thing, or co-chairs, or just one chair? Or stick Ashton with the job and make him do it the whole time, or whatever you all might want to do. But make your decisions about the officers. That again, we just need somebody to facilitate the running of the meeting. And I've set a very low bar here today as well, so please don't feel pressured. And the other thing is note taking. So your mission would be to go forth and discuss those things in the coming week and decide who you would like to take on those roles, however you decide that you would like to configure them. I see that, Todd. I'm going to nominate you for anything you try to nominate me for. I'll get you back.
You're doing an awesome job.
Well, thank you. It is an inherently messy and somewhat chaotic process trying to go from a group to a committee. But I think that we have got a roadmap here. We have, and maybe more importantly than the roadmap, we've got some good traveling companions. So it should be an interesting pilgrimage we're on together over these next few weeks while we make these decisions together. But at the end of the process, you're going to have a national committee for justice for all. And Israel and I have already taken steps and filed papers, so we're going to be able to hand over control of a genuine national party. We're going to registered with the FEC and everything. It's the real deal. So it's an exciting thing to be embarking on. And I'm really happy to be doing it with all of you. Am I missing any questions or anything? I think that that's a good question about whether people need to be approved for this steering committee. I'm going to cop out of answering you, Janie, by throwing it back to the popular sovereignty of the assembly and say that if you all wanted to have a process, you can bring it up in the Slack space. If you wanted to have a process where maybe a person has to be seconded or approved, nominated by somebody else. But at this point, a coalition of the willing, as Israel has sometimes referred to it, is an okay way to start out as well. Anybody who wants to come along. And keeping in mind that if anybody, like if I joined the group and I had a bunch of really bad ideas, the point of forming these committees is you can outvote the guy with bad ideas. If all I got is dumb stuff, you don't have to listen to me. Okay. Any other questions or anything in the chat? I don't see anything there. And I think I've kind of wandered to the end of my agenda and pretty much to the end of my time. So if nobody else has anything else, you're clear on your missions for the next week, I'm inclined to. I've been ripping off Kiana's way of ending our meetings. I used to love how she would ask, are all hearts and minds clear? I've started doing that with my nonprofit as well. And say, everybody good to go. And if not, you can certainly get in touch by email.
Mike McCorkle?
Yes, Steve.
I'd like to send you an email after the meeting, and I'd just ask you to read it today, okay?
Okay. Okay, I
Thank
can
you.
try to get, yeah, my campaign email is still functioning for this kind of thing. So.
Brother Mike, you did a marvelous job, brother. Marvelous, marvelous in spirit, in process, in procedure, in personality, and in style.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The one I definitely most want to impress. So, and thank you all for everybody for being willing participants in this sort of a joint collaboration. It's like getting together for a jam session, isn't it?
Oh yeah. We appreciate Brother Israel being the Mary Lou Williams and Duke Ellington at the same time, because he helped bring us all together. And
yeah,
Brother Mike, you did a wonderful job. But all of us, as we know, we're as we say, we're in this together. And We're just going to give it everything we got. I'm telling you, don't let these times discourage you. Be of great courage. Be encouraged. And remember that he or she who has never despaired has never lived. Ain't nothing wrong with a little retail despair. That's a sign of care. You just don't want the despair to be wholesale. That's a different thing. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep swinging.
Well, thank you all for coming through and for your gracious indulgence of me on the process. I appreciate all of the good ideas and feedback. And I'll be seeing you next weekend, I suppose. Iz didn't tell me that I was signing up for every Saturday at first. He's like, could you come for one? So if you get roped in as well, Dr. West, this is how Israel operates. He gets you for one, then he just keeps bringing you back. So.
My father, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I saw one thing in the chat asking the question. So are we seating the steering committee today? I think someone may have missed what we accomplished today.
I think we decided that we wanted to do a survey of sorts to determine who wants to be on the steering committee, and then we will likely start that work next Saturday here at 4 p.m. If that's an answer to the question. I want to thank, how do we get to Slack? Brother Ford, I will be in contact. You can also reach out to Sister Kote. She should be able to let you in. You can reach either Mike or me, Mike or Israel, at cornelwest2024.com. I should say that's Mike at cornelwest24.com or Israel at 2020, cornelwest at 2024.com. And if you guys need me, please reach out. I appreciate all you. It is beautiful to see you folks still here. You know, a lot of people went to sleep on November 6th, but like I always say, Empire continues to march, and so too do we march on. So we've been here every day since, and we'll be here every day after. Love you guys. And like Mike said, don't come to one of my meetings. My father taught me when the door opens, you shove your foot in. So
you'll get
love you guys.
Yep. Much
See
love.
you next week.
See you all soon.
Stay strong. Stay strong.
See you all
Stay
soon.
strong, bro.
Take care, Dr. West.
Each and every one of you. Absolutely.
Appreciate you all. Bye-bye. Take care, Ashton. Bye-bye. Hey, Joe. Bye-bye. Steve.
Have a good one, y'all.
Take care.
Or Mike, maybe you could just stay on after everyone else leaves. I could ask you my question.
Okay. See you there, Miss Trisha. Hello, Miss Kinch. Good to see you. Yeah, just hit me with an email, if you will, Steve. It looks like I'm going to need to take off here at the bottom of the hour as well.
Okay.
But yeah, send me an email. And good to see you. A lot of Colorado faces on the call. Christian as well.
I think I have your personal email. I don't have your phone number.
You can hit me at the campaign one at Mike at cornelwest2024.com. I'm still on that one a lot of times. So.
Okay.
All right. Take care. Y'all stay warm.